morning. How's everybody doing today?
Good.
Feeling lucky?
Oh, yeah.
Good. There's this story that I first heard from a minister years ago, and as I was getting ready for this talk and doing a little bit of research around it, I discovered that the story apparently is thousands of years old and apparently dates back to the Taoist tradition. And the story goes like this. There's this farmer who's been working his land successfully for quite a while. It was just he and his family and a horse. Until one day, the horse runs away. And the townspeople, the villagers, because there's always villagers in these stories, the villagers rally to his side and they're like, we're so sorry, oh, this is so awful, it's such terrible news. And the farmer says, is that so? And a few days later, the horse returns with 3 other horses in tow. And the villagers again rally to his side and say, this is fantastic, congratulations, what wonderful, wonderful news. And the farmer says, is that so? A few days later, his son decides, I'm going to hop up and ride one of those horses, as kids will do. And he promptly is thrown from the horse and breaks his leg. At which point, the villagers rally to the farmer's side again, and they're like, this is so terrible, I'm so sorry this happened. It's terrible news. He says, is that so? A short while later, a war breaks out. And the military comes through the town to conscript men into service, to go fight this war. And they come for the farmer's son, but the farmer's son can't go because he has a broken leg. And the villagers again say, what wonderful, wonderful news. And the farmer says, is that so? I love this story. I love this story because it directs us to the wisdom that has been carried over centuries. The same thought, the same notion, the one that Epictetus brought us way back in the day, that we are not disturbed by things but by the view we take of them. It's this notion that we have choice when we're deciding whether something is good or bad, tragedy or comedy, that we are given a choice. And we see this in our lives. We know this happens. We can see it on TV. You turn on TV or you're reading an article about somebody who just had a big hit song or a hit book or a hit movie, right? And they're being interviewed and they're saying, I just feel so lucky. Or somebody who was devastated with a fire or a tornado. They've been hit by a hurricane. And they're literally standing in the rubble of their lives, because that's where the media always wants to interview them, in the middle of the rubble of their lives. And they're being asked how they feel, and they say, I just feel so lucky. So we know we have the capacity within us to feel lucky during the hits in our lives. Whether they are the hits of great things, that new job, that new relationship, that new amount of money you just got, whatever the hit is on that side, we have the capacity to show up and feel lucky. We know we have the capacity within us to show up to the greatest tragedies in our lives and feel lucky, feel blessed. So we know it's possible, but it's not easy. And we know that too. We know that from the smaller level experiences, the daily experiences. For instance, maybe you get up one morning, you finally get up early like you've been saying you were gonna, so you can work on that project you were saying you were gonna get to before everybody else got up and was disturbing your morning. And then you worked out, and you got your Om on, and you read some Course in Miracles, and then you had nothing but tea and kale for breakfast, And I mean, you were just in the zone, and you pull to the front of the neighborhood, and you take a left, and boom, there's a sign that says, flag men ahead, 1-lane traffic, expect delays. And you go from Om to and your whole day is off the rails, right? And we know that experience, right? You're laughing, so I assume you know this experience. And the challenge for me there is it feels like the same moment that I see when I'm in a store and a 3-year-old's doing just fine, somebody's kid, until he's decidedly not fine anymore. And is just off the rails, losing his mind, And in that moment, the parent first is like, oh God, what's happening? And then the parent's like, okay, I'm right here. Calm down. Use your words. Okay? Use your words. What's happening? We have to do that for ourselves. We get to do that for ourselves in those moments when we get hit with things, whether they're joyful things or whether they're tragic things. We have this opportunity to dig in, to take care of that 3-year-old and to mine that 3-year-old for information, because it's trying to tell us something. What it's trying to tell us is the way back to our power. And yes, I brought my hula hoop again. I'm evidently obsessed with this hula hoop.
So are we.
Thank you. Good. I'm glad. Well, as long as it's mutual. So, I think what that farmer's story is calling us to, I think what Epictetus was calling us to, I think what teachers across millennia have been calling us to is return to our power. And they've been trying to direct us to where that power is and where it is not. It is not out here, it is in here. This is where I'm going from Om to it's all happening here in the choices I'm making here. So how do I get back to that power when that 3-year-old goes off the rails in my head? I think it's a joyful process. I was reading about this in Louise Hay, and yes, this is the silliest copy of You Can Lead Your Life you've ever seen. I was just separated to divorce, and she had the copy of You Can Heal Your Life, and I needed one immediately. This is what the bookstore had, so I had this lovely illustrated edition. Anyway, every time I open it up in a bookstore, in a coffee shop, people are like, "What is that grown man reading?" Anyway, she says, there is no need to make drudgery out of what you are doing. It can be fun. It can be a game. It can be a joy. It's up to you. If you saw your problems on a stage in a play by Neil Simon, you would laugh yourself right out of your chair. Tragedy and comedy are the same thing. It depends on your viewpoint. Oh, what fools we mortals be. Ugh. I have so many props today, it's ridiculous. I like to play blackjack. I'm not saying I'm good at blackjack. I just think I like to play it. I used to work for a production company. We produced music festivals on cruise ships. And when we'd get off work at the end of the day, very often we'd head down to the casino, and, bless you, and take over a blackjack table and play some cards. The thing any amateur or professional gambler will tell you is that the house always wins. Boy, you're gonna, all right, okay. The house always wins. That's just what the stats are. Sooner or later, the house is gonna win. You can play differently, you can progressive bet, you can work it out so that maybe sometimes you get up from the table with more money and sometimes with less, but the house is gonna win eventually. Well, that's the Joker. Didn't mean to put that in there. The house is not going to win this hand. There is no chance. All right, so let's see. All right. So player 1 sitting with 20, player 2 sitting with 19, and the dealer's showing a queen. So the dealer's going to hit, and the dealer busts. So you won this hand. That worked out well. It wasn't the way I hoped it would work out for the purpose of my point, but it worked out very well. Because it's okay. Sometimes you're going to have those hits that are joyful hits. Sometimes you're gonna win that hand, and you're going to be like, yes, now I'm on a roll. I'm going to win them all. And then you're going to lose the next one. So why bother? Why play? Because when we start to accept that certainty is a myth, when we start to accept that things are going to flow through our lives, that the hits are not going to last, the positive ones, the negative ones, the traffic jams, the ohms, they're not going to stay static. When we start to accept that, it frees us to show up to it. When I start to accept that I'm going to win some hands and I'm going to lose some hands, then I can sit down and just play the game. Because it's fun. That's why. So how do I get myself in my life into a place where it's fun to go through the ups and the downs? I think it starts with compassion. I think it starts with compassion for myself. And that's not an easy task. I was reading, there's this woman, Joan Halifax, who was writing about death and dying. And she wrote this line that was at first jarring to me. She said, "We are all terminal. We are all terminal." It's unavoidable. It's the thing we all have in common. We're all terminal. But she followed it up by saying, therefore, we are all caregivers of others and ourselves. If you knew your beloved was terminal, you would be the caregiver in that moment. She's saying we are all terminal, and therefore we are all caregivers of ourselves and of others here. And that starts with self-care. And self-care gets a bum rap. Self-care looks like it's self-indulgent, looks like it's selfish. It is not. Let me recontextualize that. Have you ever pulled into a gas station, pulled up to the pump, burst out of your car and said, "I'm sorry, everyone, I need gas"? No, of course not, because that's how the car goes. You got to have to fuel the tank for the car to go forward. So you get it, you get to the pump, and you're like, I'm going to fill this sucker up so I can go as far as I can. Right? Well, that's what self-care is about, filling your tank. It's about saying, in order for me to show up as my own caregiver, in order for me to show up fully as your caregiver, I have to fill my tank. I have to take care of myself. What I'm talking about here is changing the process of how we process change. Okay? Changing the process of how we process change in our lives. Because the change is going to happen. So I can change how I show up to that process and stay here in my power space. Is that so? Stay here in the space where I feel how lucky I am. Are you with me? And I think that what's really powerful here is, I was thinking about it in my own life, how I address the change. I'm laughing in my head right now because I remember the moment this was happening. I was sitting there eating something. I was like, oh, I have to stop eating like this. This is not wise, And I was thinking about that. I'm like, that's an interesting approach. Because what happens is when I decide I want to lose weight, or I need a new job, or I need to make more money, or pick your change, doesn't matter. I don't come at it with, I'm ready for a new job. I come at it with, oh God, I need a new job. Oh God, I gotta lose weight, I gotta get in shape. It's this hating on myself, like immediately, self-incrimination, right? This self-indictment. I'm like, what's wrong with you? It doesn't make sense to me. What if I showed up to that joyfully instead? Wouldn't that be a more powerful place? Wouldn't that be a luckier place to be? I'll give you recontextualize it again. I've had the great honor on a few occasions of, it's quite a ring. She's like, make it stop!
I had it up. Sorry. Oh, it's gone again.
It's 100% okay.
This is proving your point.
It's 100% okay. So I've had the great honor a few times of getting to hike the Grand Canyon. And the Grand Canyon does not disappoint. If you haven't been, you have to go to the Grand Canyon.
Right.
Grand Canyon's amazing. It's church.
And right at the bottom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and a few times I've had the great honor of backpacking the Grand Canyon. And on one such occasion years ago, it was super cool. On one such occasion years ago, several friends of mine and I decided, hey, you know what? Later this summer, we're going to meet at the canyon, and we're going to backpack to the bottom. We're going to camp down there. We're going to backpack up. Cool. I was living with one of my best friends at the time, and she and I went, this is going to be awesome. We're excited about this. Let's start training. And we would live, this is a true story. We would get off work, and I put on a backpack, and I loaded up with bottles of water, and we'd go to Audubon Park in New Orleans, and she would jog alongside me while I walked. I'm very tall. and as we did that, it wasn't that was always easy. Those workouts weren't always easy, but they were always fun. We were like, man, this is so great. We're going to the Grand Canyon, and we're getting in shape for that. When we decided to go to Grand Canyon, we weren't like, we're going to go to the Grand Canyon. I suck for not being in shape for the Grand Canyon right now. Why would I be in shape for the Grand Canyon every day of my life? That would be silly. Brian's in a very specific kind of shape. It's the Grand Canyon shape. No, so what I'm saying is when we recognize, hey, I just set a joyful new goal. I'm going to prepare for that. It's fun. It's in this lucky place. It's in this powerful place. What if we addressed our life accordingly? When your clothes don't fit anymore, when your lifestyle doesn't fit anymore, when your job doesn't fit anymore, yes, it's uncomfortable. But it's uncomfortable so you notice it. So you can then go, I think I'm ready for a new job. It's time for that. Let me work on that. I think it's time for a new relationship. It's time for that. Let me work on that. Does that make sense? So it changes my relationship with the change in my life. And we already have context for doing this. We already have context for intentionally choosing a specific experience of ourselves. Because that's what we're talking about. The experience of ourselves. Life's going to happen anyway. Change is going to happen anyway. The only question is, how are you going to experience it? How is it going to happen through you? What is your experience of it going to be? I love to watch movies. I love to read books. I love to listen to music. I grabbed a bunch of DVDs today randomly to use this as an example. Because the trick is, when I sit down, if you're putting on music, putting on music for dinner or something, honey, what do you want to listen to? What's the answer to that? The answer to that is, what do you want to feel right now? What do you want this dinner to feel like? What do I want to read right now? What I'm asking is, what do I want to experience? For instance, I might go, all right, what do I have here? Not my glasses, evidently. I could watch, well, that's easy. I could watch French Kiss, a delightful romantic comedy set in France. Oui. It's not particularly dark. It'd just be a light romp. It's kind of a bubblegum movie. Bubblegum? I don't know. Is that a thing? All right. I could do that. That could be the experience I have of myself for the next couple hours. I could watch Meet Joe Black, Brad Pitt, Anthony Hopkins. Great movie. Always kind of gives me some new insight about myself and about how I'm approaching my life. Also kind of dark, kind of heavy. Am I ready for that kind of commitment? Is that the experience I want to have of my life for the next 2 hours? This is very Metallica documentary, very specific experience. It's a Wonderful Life, classic, delightful, and dance by the light of the moon. You know, I mean, what's not to love about that? Well, it's kind of long. It takes a long time to get to the building alone. Get to all the excitement and the joy, and then I don't know. Is that the experience I want to have? So you see, I already have this skill set, this muscle set that I've been developing, not realizing that it was useful for the big things too. I already know how to consciously go, well, how do I want to experience my life? When I sit down to read, when I sit down to recreate, what experience of myself do I want to have? Well, why not do that with the rest of your life? Why not do that when you make that left and there's a flagman ahead with one lane, which happens a lot in our particular neck of the woods. Yes. You also have a context for this when it comes to social media. Some of you will be doing this later today. Do I want to post a pic of my green beer? Or my friend and I with our green shirts on? We think about, what do I want to post? What do I want to put in the world? What do I want to feed? You think about this, maybe you're outraged at what's going on in the world because it's a day that ends in Y. And you're like, well, how do I want to share that? Do I want to post something that am I outraged? Do I want to post a solution? Do I want to just stay out of it? We're already doing this. We're making choices about what we want to feed. I'm simply proposing that your luck lies in getting back to that farmer's space of, is that so? And recognizing things are passing through. And so it's more about how I'm choosing to greet them, what I'm choosing to do with them. So how do we get there? What is the self-care we need to get us to where we want to be, whether the 3-year-old inside of us pulls us far outside of the hula hoop? Okay? Whether it's super happy or super angry. I think there are some simple tools that you might find useful, that I use, that have worked for me very well. But you start with feeling it. You don't start with saying to that 3-year-old, shut up and sit down. You'd be angry at that parent. That is not how we do that. You want to hear that 3-year-old inside of you. And so you want to feel whatever you're feeling when it pulls you out of here. That's where we start. And then when you're ready to listen, when you're ready to hear it, there are a few tricks that might help. Here's one. I started using this a while back. I'm quite ADD, literally. I don't mean that as a joke or pejoratively or anything. It's true. And so when I get time to myself, sometimes my mind I can't slow down. And I'm, sitting there in traffic traffic's a theme today. I'm sitting there in traffic trying to be calm and to be centered, and instead I'm having an argument in my head with somebody, relitigating some conversation, or, I'm working on a problem from work. And so I've gotten in the habit of doing this. Shh. Here. Now. Literally, quietly, in my own, under my breath, just shh. Here. Now. And it brings me back to the moment. I say it with compassion and love, the way you might, if a loved one had just woken up from a terrible nightmare, and you were comforting them. Shh. Here. Now. So that's one tool I use. Another tool I use, I got from a therapist many years ago. It has served me very well. She said, when your brain starts to spiral, when you start to go to a story that's not serving you, stop. Actually, she said, halt. Halt. H-A-L-T. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. When you start to feel yourself spinning out, check in. Am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Am I tired? If you're any one of them, address them immediately before responding, before reacting to what's happening. This has saved my bacon more than once. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Halt. As a coach, one of the things they taught us is to ask people what is also true. Because you might be entrenched in a story of yourself. You might be entrenched in an experience of what your life feels like. It's just like this. I can't get out of this job because I don't have the skill set I need, and I've been here too long, and what's going to happen with it? Okay, I'll grant that that is the story that you feel right now. What is also true? What is also true? And when you ask what is also true, it changes your relationship with your space. You're not denying your pain. You're not feeling what you're feeling. You're just creating the opportunity that there might be things you're not looking at. What is also true? Well, it's also true is I do have degrees. I'm super passionate about this thing. I'm willing to start at the ground and work my way up, What is also true? Here's a simple way of experiencing that. If I told you to look around the room right now, which I am, look around the room right now and see green. Just green. Just focus on the green. I don't want you to see any color but green. Look around, if you're able, look around the room and just look for the green. Turn that green up. If it's a 10, make it a 15. Turn it up. Turn up that green. See nothing but the green. Now see blue. Now see blue. See, whatever we focus on does indeed grow. Whatever we put our attention to, we're going to see more of. Not less, more of. So if you're stuck in a story of how terrible it is your horse ran off, that's what you're going to see. If you're stuck in a story of how wonderful it is that the horses came back, that's what you're going to see. But if you're in a story of, is that so? It's all abundance. Then that's what you will see. That's how it works. Simple, not easy. Simple, not easy. Another one I mentioned here before is a story I first heard, that I heard in this book, The Art of Possibility, by Benjamin and Rosamund Zander. And Mr. Zander was a teacher at the New England Conservatory of Music, among other things. New England Conservatory of Music being a very elite, prestigious music school. And he said his goal was to turn his students into artists. That's the goal. But the problem is, in order to get into a place like New England Conservatory of Music, you have to be a machine. You have to have this tremendous discipline. And a lot of that discipline kind of trains the artistry and creativity out of you. And so he's like, I really want to get them into that artistic space. So here's what he would have them do. So the first day of class, what I would say to them is, when you are playing and you feel like you've done something you're calling a mistake in your head, I want you to set your bow on the stand, put your hands in the air, smile big, and say, how fascinating. Set your bow on the stand, put your hands in the air, smile big, and say, how fascinating. Try that with me once. Put your bow on the stand. Put your hands in the air. Smile big and say, how fascinating. Because, very good, well done. Because when we put ourselves in that headspace, in the midst of that pain, in the midst of that, I need to lose weight, I need a new job, it's all going wrong. In that space when I go, how fascinating, I am basically putting a decoder ring on the 3-year-old in my head. A decoder ring. That was an unexpected metaphor. I'm basically I'm helping to translate what that 3-year-old's doing because I'm bringing curiosity. And curiosity is the great diffuser. When you ask questions instead of going, this is what's happening, or yay, this is what's happening, and you ask questions, you get information from what's happening. Do you see what I'm saying? That curiosity is huge. And then last but not least, I love it. I've been reading this book for far too long. You do that? I keep like a stack of books and I read them like a little bit at a time. But this book, Thrive, by Arianna Huffington, where she's kind of trying to reset our notion of what it is to thrive. And one of the things that she spends a lot of time on is giving. She says giving is critical to you thriving. And she said, I'm not talking about giving of money. I'm talking about giving of yourself. I'm talking about giving in those small ways. She's talking about being the caregiver to ourselves and others. Those small ways that we're able to give in the interactions we have at work, the interactions we have at the grocery store, interactions we have at the bank, what have you. She's talking about how do we show up to that, as David Foster Wallace put it, being able to truly to care about other people over and over in myriad, petty, unsexy ways every day. How do we do that? She says when we flex our giving muscles every day, the process begins to transform our own lives. Because however successful we are, when we go out into the world to get things, we strive to achieve a goal. We are operating from a perceived deficit. We are focused on what we don't have and are trying to obtain, rather than on what we do. And she's not proposing that we don't strive. She's not proposing that we don't have ambition. She's proposing that we infuse our lives with giving. We come at our lives from this place of abundance. Because when we are just striving, I've got to fix this, I've got to solve this problem, we are saying to the universe, I am not abundant. I do not have enough. And she's saying that flies in the face of being happy. The naturalist John Burroughs said this. He said, the great opportunity is where you are. Do not despise your own place and hour. Every place is under the stars. Every place is the center of the world. Because every place has the opportunity to be out here, letting life happen at you, letting life happen to you, or in here, letting life happen through you. Every place offers you that opportunity. And it comes from choice. That's why I grabbed my book, because that's really, at the end of the day, what my book is about, is helping me. It was really written for me, because I wasn't paying attention to myself, and listening to what I was saying. It's helping me get to a place of power, of choice, of going, hey, you know what? I'm going to have hits, and I'm going to get hit. So I get to decide how I want to show up to that experience. I get to decide whether I want to keep riding this roller coaster of being leveled or being elevated and then crushed, or if I want to show up to all of it lucky. As so many of the great teachers have said over millennia in their own version of Is That So? If you want to be more virtuous, you do that by practicing virtue. If you want to be more curious, you do that by practicing curiosity. You want to be more compassionate, you do that by practicing compassion. You want to be more loving, you do that by practicing love in small ways, a little bit at a time, until it becomes who you are. If you want to feel lucky, you do that by embracing that you already are. Is that so? Yes, it is. Decidedly so. I'm going to close with a song that I wrote recently when I was not in my hula hoop. When I was trying to find my way back to that experience of myself. And I recognized that I was sort of waiting for life to fix it for me. And the problem with that is that life already did. Because it gave me the power to show up to it in my truth. Thank you all for having me. It's always such a pleasure to be here. You all are a delight. And your energy is so feeding. I like to try new things here as a result. It makes it fun for me to go out on a limb. Have a lucky day. My alarm clock is a siren screaming at me. The emergency is what I have let become of me. All this time on my knees, I guess I thought someone would come rescue me. With all the dues that I've paid, somehow debt still remains. Take what's left of me. Sheltered in place, I reach for the day when you'll come find me. You will come find me. Out of my way, if I get out of my way, will you come find me? Come find me, 'cause I've been waiting, and I've been aching for you to come find me. There's a skyline in my mind's eye that's been calling me. I wanna walk those streets, just my baby and me, in our land of hope and dreams. But I've been frozen inside, paralyzed as the years slip by. That is the devil's trap, get all up in my head. Oh yeah. Who do you think you are? Sheltered in place, I reach for the day when you'll come find me. You will come find me. Out of my way, if I get out of my way, will you come find me? Come find me, 'cause I've been waiting, and I've been aching for you to come find me. Tomorrow's not promised, I know, but I woke up today here. Getting out of my bed was no joke, but somehow I still made it here. I've been locked in the dark for too long, waiting for the all clear to come out. I think maybe I read it all wrong. Life's been waiting for me all along. Sheltered in place, I reach for the day when you come find me. Come find me. Out of my way, if I get out of my way, you will come find me. Come find me, 'cause I've been waiting, and I've been aching, I've been praying, and I am ready for you to come find me. Come find me. Come find me. Thank you all so much.